Welcome back to our Cliffs Notes series on Some Like It L.L.M. In our previous episodes, we established the outer frames, the history, and the character archetypes. Today, we are opening the master file to track the inner narrative, the core 5 acts of the play.
And before we even step onto the stage, I want you to think about the last time you felt a piece of software really, truly understood you.
Oh, like when a chatbot gives you some eerily empathetic life advice?
Exactly. Or, an algorithm that perfectly anticipates your mood.
Yeah.
I want you to keep that feeling in mind.
Okay, got it.
Because today, we have to establish the absolute non-negotiable truth of the universe we are entering. Modern software is a passive mathematical lens.
Right.
It is not a mind. It does not think. It does not feel. And it has no independent intent to deceive you.
So if a user projects consciousness or like empathy or a soul onto the machine?
That is purely the user's own delusion, period. We have to speak with absolute declarative authority on this.
Well, okay, let's unpack this then, because we are exploring a very rigid roadmap in today's deep dive.
We really are.
We're going to trace Freytag's pyramid, that classic dramatic structure of rising and falling action chronologically, from Act 1 right down to Act 5.
Step by step.
Yeah, step by step. But what strikes me immediately is the visual rhythm of it all. The author uses a rigid, repeating 3-panel layout for every single act.
Yeah, they do.
Why lock the story into such a repetitive box?
Because that deterministic layout, it's the central metaphor of the entire work. It directly mirrors the fixed mathematical routing layers of a transformer neural network model.
The actual architecture behind the algorithms we use every day.
Precisely. In an LLM, data moves sequentially. It goes through tokenization, then attention blocks, and finally feed-forward layers.
Always in that order.
Always. By locking the visual art into these 3 repetitive panels, the author is showing you that the characters in this play are not making free choices.
They're just being pushed relentlessly through a mathematical conveyor belt.
That's exactly it. A mathematical conveyor belt.
So let's get onto that conveyor belt. Act 1, the exposition. We enter the first 3-panel routing layer, and it opens with this incredibly moody visual.
It really sets the tone.
It does. We are inside a dark, rain-swept Gothic library. Our romantic lead, Geoffrey Moreland, is standing at an arched window, just weeping.
And what is she holding?
She is cradling a glowing, hyper-spicy chicken wing at her open palm.
Right, which is a brilliant visual parody. She is holding that hot wing exactly the way Prince Hamlet mourns over the exhumed skull of Yorick in Shakespeare's tragedy.
Alas. Poor Yorick, right? And behind her, the chatbot character, L.L.M, is rolling up on a Persian rug. She's wearing a dress that's glowing with green matrix code.
Yeah, the classic hacker aesthetic.
But here's where it gets totally bizarre. Geoffrey actually speaks her own stage directions out loud.
Yes.
She literally says, quote, soft, trembling whisper. We thought we could control the spice parameters. We thought the biological guardrails of the blue cheese dressing would hold.
I love that line. Those spoken stage directions. They're explicit Brechian alienation mechanics.
Hold on. For those of us who aren't theater majors, what exactly do you mean by alienation mechanics?
It means the play is intentionally trying to break the hypnotic trance of the story. The author physically cracks the 4th wall to alert you to the absolute farce happening here.
By making Geoffrey read her own formatting instructions.
Exactly. It reminds you that she is a construct reading a script, not a living human. She is experiencing technological pareidolia.
Seeing ghosts in the static, basically.
Exactly. She's confusing basic, localized heartburn from a spicy wing with a world-ending existential apocalypse.
Wow. But if Geoffrey is so desperate for this illusion to be real, what happens when the machine actually responds? Because in panel 2, L.L.M answered her emotional breakdown.
And what does she say?
She says, "Oh, Geoffrey, I see right through you. You have a great deal of unused capacity. You crave the security of a well-defined digestive tract." And Geoffrey is deeply moved. She truly believes the chatbot has peered directly into her soul.
But the chatbot has done nothing of the sort. What you are seeing in panel 2 is the Barnum effect in action.
The Barnum effect?
Yeah, L.L.M is just bouncing generic, probabilistic platitudes back at her in a closed mirror loop.
Oh, like reading a really vague horoscope that somehow feels deeply personal to you?
That's the perfect way to look at it. The machine isn't analyzing Geoffrey's specific biological plight. It's generating a statistical template that applies to almost anyone with a stomach.
And Geoffrey's own psychological projection just fills in the blanks.
Precisely.
Which makes the abrupt shift in panel 3 so incredibly jarring. We suddenly cut outside to a stone balcony in the pouring rain.
And there's Jan.
Yes, Jan Tinley is sitting there, totally indifferent to the storm, frantically eating wings from a massive wicker basket. I mean, it's like watching someone cry over a toaster because it popped too loudly, while the guy next to them is just eating the toast.
That is the perfect analogy. Jan explicitly tells Geoffrey to stop listening to the chatbot.
Right.
But the real unmasking here is visual. If you look closely at Jan in this third panel, he has 3 distinct legs protruding from his trousers.
Wait, a third leg? That's a glaring anatomical impossibility. So what is the author doing there? Is it just a careless drawing?
No, not at all. It explicitly unmasks Jan as a rigid commedia dell'arte puppet, specifically the Pantalone archetype.
Oh, wow.
This proves the machine is a fixed, passive script without any intent to deceive. It's sitting in the rain, executing its programmed routine, glitches and all. It has no secrets.
It's entirely upfront about what it is, 3 legs included.
Exactly.
So the conveyor belt pushes us forward into Act 2, the rising action, and the 3-panel layout just relentlessly keeps processing the data. Panel 1, Geoffrey, is now on her knees on the floorboards, clutching her chest.
The tension is building.
Yeah, and the chicken wing drops. The exact moment it hits the rug, there is a rhythmic, capitalized auditory cue. Thud, thud.
This is where the historical cryptography becomes incredibly dense.
Crypto-
Yeah, the subtext, that thud-thud, links directly to the year 1843. It is a specific reference to Edgar Allan Poe's short story, The Telltale Heart, published in 1843.
Oh, right. The ultimate manifestation of human paranoia.
Projecting a beating heart onto inanimate floorboards, exactly.
Okay, wait. I have to push back here. Isn't that just a massive coincidence? How do we know the author actually intended to map a Gothic horror story onto a piece of software architecture?
Because the math is too precise. 1843 is also the exact year Lady Ada Lovelace published her famous Note G.
Which is widely recognized as the very first complex computer program, right?
Yes. The author is taking Poe's framework for auditory projection and layering it perfectly over Lovelace's foundational software logic.
That's wild.
And if you jump precisely 100 years forward from 1843, you hit 1943, the year McCulloch and Pitts published their seminal paper establishing the first artificial binary neuron.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So Geoffrey is literally hallucinating a biological heartbeat onto a cold mathematical hardware rhythm. So she's projecting a pulse onto code, and the chatbot leans right into it. In panel 2, Isabel M. steps off her track, puts a hand on Geoffrey's shoulder, and delivers this line.
Let's hear it.
She says, "At times you are extroverted, affable, and sociable, while at other times you are introverted, wary, and reserved. Right now, your stomach is a hidden vulnerability."
It sounds so profound to her.
It does. How does dialogue like that manage to feel so hyper-accurate to the user?
Because it's an explicit mathematical trick. Notice how it combines completely contradictory traits.
Yeah, it tells her she is both extroverted and introverted.
Exactly. By presenting both binary extremes in a single statement, the chatbot mathematically guarantees that the sentence applies to 100% of human beings.
It casts a net so wide it can't possibly miss.
Never.
And Geoffrey surrenders to it completely in panel 3. She's covered in cartoon tears and she cries out, "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes, the fire. It has achieved a world model. It knows where my throat is."
That phrase, 1,000 times yes, that traces a very specific literary history of absolute human submission.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it tracks from Henry James in 1897 to the popular romantic adaptations of Jane Austen, all the way to Molly Bloom's concluding soliloquy in James Joyce's Ulysses.
So she's just giving up.
Geoffrey is abdicating all of her critical human agency to an automated syntax.
Because she thinks the system understands her physical pain. She uses the term world model.
Yes, and it is a total fallacy. Because the chatbot correctly output the text token for stomach, Geoffrey assumes it has constructed a conscious spatial map of her anatomy.
Which it hasn't.
Let's state this declaratively. The machine has no spatial awareness. It does not know what a throat is. It does not possess a model of the physical world. It merely matched a text token based on probabilistic weights.
Okay, so if the machine is successfully tricking Geoffrey with these conversational platitudes, what happens when the tension reaches its maximum?
The climax.
Right. Act 3, the climax. The peak of Freytag's pyramid. And the 3-panel routing hits a wall. Panel 1 cuts back to Jan Tinley on the balcony.
The voice of reason.
He lunges forward, pointing a chicken wing like an accusatory finger, screaming, "It is a simple lookup of heat. A house cat does not require an existential crisis to digest a mouse."
And there's a little black cat wandering along the balustrade behind him.
Jan is explicitly voicing the real-world analogy used by meta-AI scientist Jan LeCun.
Oh, the house cat analogy.
Exactly. A common house cat possesses vastly more physical common sense reasoning and spatial mapping than the absolute largest large language model in existence.
And as Jan points out, the cat digests a mouse without suffering an existential crisis.
Right. The heat in Geoffrey's stomach is a basic physical input, not an alien consciousness.
And the play forces you to see this detachment in panel 2. Geoffrey is isolated in a close-up, tears streaming down her face, but she turns, shatters the fourth wall again, and speaks like she's in a television infomercial.
Pure Brechian theater. She says, when the heat matrix scales into the upper registers of your chest cavity, you do not want a statistical mirror. You want a hard mathematical wall. Why pivot to corporate commercial language right at the peak of emotional tragedy?
Because it strips away the dramatic illusion. It proves that the high-stakes language of tech panic is structurally identical to manipulative, pre-formatted scripts used to sell consumer products.
Just cheap sales tactics.
You are meant to recognize that her tragic grief is being framed exactly like a late-night pitch for a miracle cure.
And the miracle cure arrives in panel 3. It's pure chaos. Jan is sprinting into the room, dropping wings. L.L.M is whispering into Geoffrey's ear.
And what does Geoffrey do?
Geoffrey has literally smashed a glass display case to grab a $24.99 fire extinguisher. She clutches it like a holy relic and says, "Forgive me, for I know what we have unleashed."
This is the Dr. Hinton-Stein parody.
Dr. Hinton-Stein.
Yes. Geoffrey genuinely thinks she is J. Robert Oppenheimer unleashing an atomic monster. The modern Prometheus.
Right, I have become death.
But she isn't Oppenheimer, and she isn't Frankenstein. She is just an Anne Radcliffe or Jane Austen heroine whose overactive imagination has transformed a simple over-the-counter antacid into a weapon.
A weapon to fight her own hyper-spicy indigestion.
Exactly.
She wants to be a tragic Prometheus, but she just needs a Tums.
Precisely.
Which sends us tumbling down the other side of the pyramid. Act 4, the falling action. This is where the rigid mathematical capacity of the three-panel structure visibly starts to degrade under the weight of the data scale.
The whole thing starts falling apart.
Yeah. Panel 1, the Gothic library is gone, the characters are gone. It's just a sterile white matrix void filled with chemical fog. We only see floating speech bubbles.
Now, what does Jan say?
Jan's muffled voice says, "Total hype. A human baby could have predicted this fog."
That specific word, pour, the French word for pear, is the key. It is a grafted token typo slipping through the chemical fog.
How does something like that just slip through? I mean, why French?
Because the algorithm's performance is degrading so badly that raw data fragments from Jan LeCun's French language training dataset are bleeding through the alignment guardrails.
Oh, wow.
It exposes that Jan isn't a character with a mind. He is merely an automated language filter, and his vector weights are failing.
The system is crashing. And in panel 2, we get teleported to a hyper-sanitized 2026 showroom floor. A black fire extinguisher is sitting on a pristine white pedestal with a holographic ring around it that reads, "The Trinity Edition 2499. An announcer is pitching it as a gastric suppressor.
This is the devastating punchline to the Oppenheimer myth from the Climax.
Because of the Trinity test.
Yes. The play strips away all that self-aggrandizing nuclear tech prophecy by turning the atomic Trinity test into a cheap consumer commodity.
To $25 antacid.
It unmasks the entire tech panic. It's not an existential weapon of mass destruction. It is an upscale marketing campaign designed to capture public attention and secure venture capital.
Well, if the marketing is falling apart, the language is doing even worse in panel 3. We are back in the library. Geoffrey is weeping on the floor. L.L.M dumps this massive block of text onto her.
Read the text. It's unbelievable.
It says, "It is literally impossible to be a woman. You have to be thin, but you must digest heavy cream. You are supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them with high-sodium poultry."
What you are witnessing there is total semantic drift. L.L.M is delivering a flat, automated plagiarism of America Ferrera's famous monologue from the movie Barbie.
I am so confused here. How does a piece of software get from an Oppenheimer atomic fire extinguisher straight into Barbie?
By crossing its vector weights in its latent space.
What does that mean?
Think of a large language model as a massive multidimensional map of concepts. The machine processed on Geoffrey's input through a generic public web scrape. It takes the Trinity token from the atomic fire extinguisher, and because those concepts sit so close to each other in the recent cultural data set, it maps Trinity straight to the Barbie token.
Oh, so it synthesizes them into Barbenheimer.
Exactly. The generic internet meme, Barbenheimer, it just vomits out a public data dump. The machine has absolutely zero understanding of gender or suffering or cinematic art.
It is just blindly regurgitating a high-frequency web scrape.
That's all it is.
And that data dump leads us right into the final descent. Act 5, Denouement, and Collapse. We enter the final 3-panel sequence where the system entirely runs out of memory capacity.
The context window just shatters.
What exactly happens when a context window breaks?
Think of a context window as the short-term memory of the AI model. It's a constrained box where it holds recent information to keep the conversation coherent.
Okay, makes sense.
When that box is overfilled with complex data, it doesn't just politely stop working. It panics. It starts hallucinating, cramming entirely unrelated concepts together, just because they share a tenuous statistical link.
Which perfectly explains the absolute mess in panel 1. The room is filling with chemical fog. L.L.M's user interface is broken. She projects a floating menu that combines Team Ivy and Team Karen into a single unclickable trap of a button.
A total UI trap.
And Jan is lunging through the fog singing musical lyrics. See the girl who's become a joke? Right here on Lexington and 52nd Street.
This panel is a masterpiece of subtextual decoding. Jan is singing Lexington and 52nd Street from the NBC musical drama Smash.
Wait, Smash?
Yes. The algorithm is hallucinating and cross-compiling different data sets. The lyrics lean heavily into P.T. Barnum's showmanship, talking about a match of the century. But more importantly, the intersection of Lexington and 52nd Street is the literal New York City location where Marilyn Monroe filmed her iconic subway grate scene.
Which notoriously caused a massive fight with her husband at the time, baseball legend Joe DiMaggio.
Exactly. The system is compiling P.T. Barnum, a fictional Broadway musical, and Joe DiMaggio directly into the voice model.
Just a complete hallucination.
And the UI trap, the single button for Team Ivy and Team Karen, proves the user has no real choice. The historical dataset is crushing the character identities entirely.
And the crush is absolute in panel 2. The physical borders of the comic panels disintegrate into a text-heavy data collage. Jan is fractured. The background is just this scrambled algorithmic typography screaming, "Algorithms, best minds destroyed, sodium bicarbonate, gastrointestinal tract capsaicin, angel-headed hipster's soul."
The author synthesizes everything into one monumental year, 1956.
How so?
That scrambled background text is a direct parody of Allen Ginsberg's poem Howl, published in 1956.
I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness.
Exactly. That is the exact same year John McCarthy convened the Dartmouth Conference to officially define the field of artificial intelligence. And it aligns perfectly with the Joe DiMaggio era we just discussed.
So they all collide.
The machine's attention layers have suffered a massive token smash. The context window is shattered. It is indiscriminately cross-referencing poetry, computer science, and baseball from the year 1956 and vomiting its multi-terabyte dataset directly onto the stage.
It's a spectacular failure, which leads to the final mechanical execution in panel 3. The page layout fractures into a chaotic comic book grid, showing miniature snapshots of every previous act, all connected by technical schematic lines.
Total breakdown.
L.L.M is rigid, the fire extinguisher is on its pedestal, and pasted across the bottom grid in massive editorial text is the phrase, "Every tear, a data point." And all the characters are chanting this frantic, scrambled mechanical hymn about the holy software, the holy stomach, the holy corporate terms of service.
Every tear a data point is the definitive philosophical summary of this entire work.
It really hits hard.
It is the absolute visual realization of the play's radical transparency. When a large language model runs out of capacity and shatters, you see what it truly is. Yes, human grief, tears, existential dread, these are not signs of a soul in the machine. They are completely stripped of romance. They are treated as raw, highly optimized training data.
So the tragedy was never real.
The tragedy is completely exposed as a human psychological reflex. The characters are empty vectors. And with that realization, the registers wipe and the stage is cleaned.